So we've talked about the War of the Worlds quite a bit on this channel, but I figured it would be a great opportunity to discuss one of the more specific aspects of the classic alien invasion story, and that's how the invaders got to Earth, because it varies quite a bit from adaptation to adaptation. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So we're all familiar with the classic alien invasion story, the War of the Worlds. Aliens, or Martians, depending on which adaptation you're looking at, come to the Earth, carry out a large-scale invasion, and ultimately succumb to the bacteria and viruses that humanity has long since become immune to. But the story itself differs quite a bit from adaptation to adaptation, and one of the big ways it differs is how the invaders get to the Earth. So let's start at the very beginning with the novel itself, the sort of source of this story. In the novel, the Martians send a total of 10 cylinders from Mars to the Earth. These cylinders are implied to actually be large bullet-shaped projectiles fired out of a gun that contain the elements of their invasion force. After all, at the time that the book was written, the most likely sort of instrument for space travel was believed to be a very large gun, which sounds silly to us now, but at the time seemed fairly practical. The Martians send a total of 10 cylinders, all targeted at the United Kingdom, in an effort to take down what was, at the time, the most powerful nation on the Earth. These cylinders fell in various places across the UK, strategically chosen, after which the back of these bullet-shaped projectiles, the top of the cylinders, if you will, unscrewed, and the Martians emerged, securing the area around their landing zone before constructing their war machines, most notably their tripods. Now, this is the sort of classic way that the Martians come to the Earth, these large cylinders, but it's not the only way based on the different adaptations. These cylinders remained a staple of not just the book, but the 1938 radio broadcast carried out by Orson Welles, in which the Martian invasion was kept relatively the same, but moved from the United Kingdom to the area around New York City, focusing on northern New Jersey. And the sequence of events was the same. Cylinder falls in a strategically significant location, the back of the cylinder unscrews, the Martians come out, they secure their landing zone, and they begin constructing their war machines. Where this starts to differ a little bit is the 1953 George Pal edition of War of the Worlds, the first sort of major film adaptation. This has a very minor change, shifting the cylinders to sort of spherical or oval-shaped projectiles, where instead of having a large end that would unscrew, like a can, for example, it simply opens a hatch on the side and the war machines come out from there. Once again, the process is the same. The cylinder falls, the Martians come out, they secure their landing zone, and then deploy their war machines. And it's worth noting that in all three versions of the story we've discussed so far, the invaders are Martians. They come from Mars. They're not just generic aliens, but specifically from the Red Planet. This would change with the next major adaptation, the 2005 War of the Worlds by Steven Spielberg. Now, I want to throw in there that I know that there were adaptations throughout the 80s and the 90s, most notably the Jeff Wayne musical version, but I would not necessarily consider that a major adaptation. It's gotten some more notoriety now, but at the time it wasn't quite as popular. So, the 2005 version took a lot of liberties with how our alien invaders get to the Earth. First off, they shifted the homeworld of the aliens from Mars to a vague, nebulous alien world. This is mainly due to the fact that by 2005, there was pretty substantial evidence that Mars was, in fact, a dead, dusty red rock, and not capable of harboring a large spacefaring civilization. So, to make the story more believable, Spielberg moved his aliens' homeworld from Mars to just out there in space. Now, how they got to the Earth was changed substantially. In the Spielberg version, the war machines are instead buried in large cylinders across the Earth hundreds of thousands of years before the modern day. These cylinders contained a number of tripod war machines that would serve as the primary forces for the alien invasion of the planet. When the time came for this invasion, alien warships entered our atmosphere disguised as storm clouds and used lightning to deliver the crews down to the waiting cylinders, after which the cylinders screwed open from under the ground, something you can see in the movie, and the war machines simply emerged. They didn't do the whole Martians coming out, secure the landing zone, and then build their war machines from there. Now, I will note that while the 2005 film adaptation of War of the Worlds is one of my personal favorite adaptations of the story, this is one of its biggest flaws. flaws. This plan is just really flawed and doesn't really hold water. For example, over the course of 100,000 years, you don't think the alien invaders might have significantly more advanced technology that would make an invasion a lot simpler or easier. You don't think they would come up with a better invasion plan. You don't think in that amount of time humans would have discovered at least one of these buried cylinders. Even if we couldn't open it, a large metallic cylinder buried underground would raise a lot of questions, especially buried close enough to the ground where the war machines could easily climb out of. And as we see in the movie, buried under major metropolitan areas where a lot of ground surveys would have taken place. Like I said, I really love that film adaptation, but this is probably one of its most significant flaws. And the last version of War of the Worlds that I'm going to discuss here is the 2020-2021 BBC version of the War of the Worlds, which is set in the Edwardian era, one of the few versions of this story to actually still take place in the original time period that the book was written. In this version, the Martians once again use a gun to fire projectiles towards the Earth. However, in this version, they're not cylinders, but spheres that are far too small to actually carry the war machines themselves, instead seemingly seeping the material to build these war machines into the ground, where they're constructed underground and then emerge from beneath the dirt. Now, we do see some elements of the original sort of emergence scenes where the Martians come out and investigate their surroundings, secure their landing zone, and then start constructing their machines. Now, these seem to be depicted as the sphere rotating and heat rays coming out of nowhere, which is not quite as visually stunning, but is an interesting depiction, especially true to the book, as the book described the heat ray as an invisible beam of light. All in all, this is one of the biggest ways that these adaptations differ from one another, and it's kind of interesting to take a look at it, because it really shows our sort of thought process on an alien invasion and how it's changed over the course of 100 years. But all of this serves as a prelude to the sort of meat of any War of the Worlds story, and that's the actual invasion. And the biggest piece of hardware utilized by the Martians in their invasion would be their war machines. And if you'd like to learn more about the adaptation of the Martian war machine throughout the different versions of War of the Worlds, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments which of these sort of methods is your favorite. Which one do you think is the best story? The original depiction of the Martians coming in cylinders fired out of big guns? Do you like the 2005 War of the Worlds sort of thundercloud arrival sort of depiction? Like, let me know down below in the comments. And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in science fiction, you can let me know down there as well. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.